Welcome back to Leeds Lately. Today's video is going to be about what we learned from pre-season. As you can see, we've got the tactics board out behind me, so make sure you hit that big red button. But let's get straight into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about, and that I noticed certainly throughout these games, is the high press that we employ from kickoff. Now, we have pressed this last season under Daniel Farke, but nowhere to these levels in terms of how fast out the blocks, how fit we are. So when the ball comes back from their striker at kickoff, who takes it and plays it back to the defence, Leeds will essentially rush forward as fast as possible. And a lot of the time, we like to fill up these positions so that there is basically nowhere for them to go. So you might have two Leeds defenders sat on the halfway line like this, marking the striker, but the full-backs will come high and wide like this. Up here, you might push someone on. So when these defenders have the ball in this situation, it might look like he's got a few options, but if it comes out to here, you know for a fact that, let's say it's Nonto, comes straight out to there, then you get whoever this midfielder might be, Gruev, Joe Rothwell, whoever it is, will come into this gap, and then you'll have Firpo come in and mark this player. And then because of this, the guy has no option, so he either has to go back to the centre back. But when he does that, then you get Mateo Joseph pressing, and then Jorginho comes and marks this option as well. So a lot of the time, what we've seen in this pre-season is that players have ended up having to go back to the goalkeeper, lump the ball long, and a lot of the time that ends up on Joe Rodon's head. Joe Rodon wins the ball back, gives it a little header into Ampadu, and Leeds can play forward again and play through the lines. So that is obviously just basically what pressing is. But with the intensity that we do it, say the ball comes out here and there's nobody here, Aronson, whoever it is, will make an absolute sprint effort to get out there. And then say this person comes and makes a line down, an option down the line, you have Bogle coming and blocking that off. You're always trying to force them to go backwards or force them into a mistake, because the other thing is, as well as going long, the other thing you want to force them to do is make a mistake. And we've seen that a few times where somebody has tried to pass it inside, and somebody like Mateo Joseph, who really seems hungry for it this pre-season, bang, straight in and takes the ball off him. And then you've got players already ready in those attacking positions because of how high up they were for the press in the first place. So you're straight on it. As soon as you win the ball back, you're straight on it in those attacking positions. This leads me on nicely to the other thing that I've noticed as well. So let's say that your opposition team is here and they're playing a low block, basically on the edge of the box. You've got the holding midfielders in there and everything, and you've got a lot of these players back. They're in a couple of banks of four with some strikers as well. And Leeds are basically attempting to play through the line. So you'll have a couple of Leeds players, one out on the wing perhaps. You might have Firpo going wide. You might have a lot of these players in the edge of the box. A lot of the time now, Ampadu and Gruev will take up really, really high positions up here. Now, we're used to seeing that basically Ampadu and Gruev, or whoever the two number sixes are, the two holding midfielders, will be back all the way here, and then you'll have your two other defenders there, and what is called a rest defence. Now, your rest defence is basically you've got the ball and you're actually attacking, you're playing the ball around, but your rest defence is basically what happens if we lose the ball, what happens if we get counter-attacked. And last season, Leeds had a rest defence that was pretty much a box like this. So when the opposition won the ball back, and perhaps they sent the ball long into this corner, you've got so many players to then cover, and instantly this player, or let's say it's two players, they're always going to be outnumbered by that. But this season, or this pre-season at least, it looks like we're going to leave Rodon and Struijk on the edge of the semicircle here, on the circle and the halfway line, and Gruev and Ampadu are going to be so high up. Now, the reason this is good for me is A, because positionally it helps us to press, it helps us to be higher up, but it also helps us in terms of forcing the opposition backwards. It also helps us in breaking down low blocks, because every time we are on the attack here, a lot of the time when the ball came back all the way to here, that allows the whole opposition team, the whole red team, to get up the pitch. They then see a backwards pass, they all squeeze up a little bit to force you to go backwards towards your own goal to try and relieve pressure against themselves. But if you have your players here and somebody plays the ball backwards from here, there isn't really a chance for them to get out. They can try and press, but Ampadu's good enough to play the ball back inside. You might have Gruev, who as well, speaking of which, is starting to make some forward runs this season. This is Gruev. He's actually trying to make his way into the box, and so you might get the ball going through to him because he might be an unmarked player due to the fact that the number 6s are so high up the pitch, trying to overload that penalty area. But I just wanted to point it out because I think it's so positive that we've got 2 number 6s this high up the pitch, allowing recycling of the possession to be much quicker, much sharper, and allowing us to keep the pressure on an opposition team. Now, you might say, okay, well, we're going to be a little bit more exposed at the back, and we have conceded a few goals, but you like to think that Bogle, Firpo, and those defenders as well can also help and get back. But what you're doing is sacrificing a little bit of defensive stability by leaving 2 on the halfway line for a lot more attacking prowess. Now, I did notice that when Ampadu came off in some of these games, this became a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And certainly as games went on as well, everything became a little bit deeper. But I do feel like Ampadu could be the key to this high position of these two because he's so good with the ball at his feet. Yes, Gruev is good as well, but I think Gruev is actually going to be asked to do a bit more of a, look, get the ball, 1-2, get the ball into the box, go around the keeper, like he did against Hanover. That was exactly what happened with his goal because he started in a high position, because he was given the license to play it to Aronson, then go through and score. Leeds were able to score via one of their number 6s, one of their midfielders, which just did not happen last season. So that as well is a really positive sign for me. The next one I want to talk about is the fact that we have a lot of pace on our wings. Now, yesterday's video was about Jonathan Rowe and about how he can stretch the play for Leeds. So let's say that Leeds are in a position like this and you've got some forwards here. You've got the opposition midfielders, and then you've got a back 4 for them. And the back 4 will be quite high up here. So at the moment, they look like they are pretty solid in their positions, the opposition here, the red team. But the ball's back here with Ampadu. A lot of the time you will see, or you certainly saw Leeds last season, not being able to break down a team who are basically well structured and organised. So let's say that these red team are set up in a 4-3-3 here. Leeds, a lot of the time, will slowly pass the ball around, pass it back, and obviously these come and close that down, and you run out of options. What I think is good, and I think it certainly did happen a few times last season as well, don't get me wrong, but somebody like Dan James will take it upon himself to go, do you know what, I'm going to make a run, and I'm going to make a run into this corner flag here. And what happens is, Ampadu, or somebody like Ampadu, looks up and goes, do you know what, I can make that pass. So as Dan James runs into here, there's a long ball over the top, and it gets itself all the way to Dan James here, right? Obviously, all of these players will then try to make the runs back and get back into the box. But at the same time as that, Leeds are all able to come up the pitch as much as possible as these players try to track back and try to get back into their own half. Leeds, everybody basically gets forward and you instantly put yourself in an attacking position. Now, what's good about this is, okay, we're in a corner flag. It might not be that dangerous, you would think. But what it does is it makes the opposition team turn around. It makes them face their own goal. It makes them have to readjust. They were all in nice positions. Look at them now. They are kind of in disarray. You've got a player here on the edge of the box who might have a run in. So then this player has to cover that. This player has to maybe cover there. Then there's players running all over the spot. You have to readjust your positions. Everybody has to get back in, and that might not be the most organised thing in the world if you've had to do it off the cuff. So then when Dan James does put a ball into the box, you've got somebody like Mateo Joseph, who we'll come on to, has been making really attacking runs towards the front post. He can get on the end of them. You've got somebody like Jorginho, whoever else who might arrive at that back post. You've got options in the box because you've basically bypassed the whole team, bypassed the press, bypassed the mid-block. Everything has gone past them because you've got pace like Dan James on the wings. Now, we talked about this yesterday because we said that somebody like Jonathan Rowe from Norwich, who we've been linked with signing, could do the same thing on the opposite side, on the same side as Dan James, whichever, but it stretches the play. It allows you to get forward. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, not in these positions particularly, but on the edge of the box when we're trying to break down low blocks, it's been something that we've really struggled with over the course of the past season or so without really truly having a number 10 that you can rely on to play those balls into the right areas. But we saw in a couple of the pre-season games that Jorginho, let's say this should be Jorginho here, and then you've got your two holding midfielders, your two sixes, you've got a fullback, you've got your wide men, another fullback here, and then you've got Mateo Joseph here. A lot of the time, we saw that these players were packed on the edge of the box and Leeds would go, okay, go out wide, go down the line, someone closes you down, not got an option, come back, recycle the ball, everything gets slow. But what I've noticed that's really good is that Jorginho will receive the ball in these positions here. So you're kind of looking at this position here on the edge of the box and this position here on the edge of the box. These are like the ideal Jorginho positions. He loves to pick the ball up in these half spaces just on the edge of the box. And what he loves to do is wait for Mateo Joseph to make a run. Now, Mateo Joseph is the best attacking runner that we have as a striker. Patrick Bamford makes very good runs, but Mateo Joseph has just got a little bit more aggression, pace, belief and desire to go and get to the ball. And he's been making those runs really well. What he does is he might come close to the ball there. So what he might think is that this player here thinks he's got him. Okay, this player thinks he's got Mateo Joseph, but what he does is he just, as the ball's being played round, it'll come back, bounce back. All the time that this is happening, Mateo Joseph is just stepping backwards. He's not running. He's literally just walking backwards and finding himself in the blind spot between these two defenders. Then, when this defender finally does notice him, he'll come back here to try and mark him, and that's when Mateo Joseph will go straight past him. Jorginho slots that ball right through that gap into the box, and Mateo Joseph can finish. Now, we saw that a couple of times, Jorginho, especially in the Valencia game, got himself in this position on the left-hand side and was able to slot the ball through for a really nice pass for somebody to get in on goal. That is the sort of incisive pass that you need when you are trying to break down a low block, and Mateo Joseph has got himself really, really good at making those runs in behind, and now Jorginho's starting to pick him out a little bit more. We might be getting a little bit more luck in terms of being able to break down low blocks. The other thing that I wanted to talk about as well is the fullbacks. Now, last season, we obviously had Firpo overlapping on that left-hand side, but Archie Gray was a little bit more of a, I'm going to tuck in and almost play as an extra midfielder in there. But this season, we've got an out-and-out fullback in Jayden Bogle. So let's say that, again, we're trying to play on the edge of the box and we're trying to break things down. You might have somebody like, so let's say you've got your centre-backs there. You might have somebody like Nonto here, for example. Nonto is marked by this player, so he can't really get free. But if, say, Ampadu is here, he can always pick out Bogle because Bogle is wanting to make those runs beyond the defender and put the ball into the box. Now we know that Mateo Joseph likes to make his runs to the near post. Whoever else might be able to come into this gap here. And when the ball comes in, Mateo Joseph likes to try and get a glance across the goalkeeper. But if it doesn't hit him, then you've got the other player here. You've got that weapon from both sides now with Firpo's decent delivery. You've got Bogle with decent delivery as well. Being able to overlap like that on both sides is a really, really good thing to have, and I think it's been invaluable to us in pre-season in creating chances, and I think it's going to bear out in the rest of the season as well, that we are going to create a lot of chances with overlaps and underlaps down the wing with our fullbacks going back past people. Like I said, last season, we had Firpo doing that, but we didn't have Gray doing that. So this season, we're going to have both fullbacks going past players and getting the ball into the box, or potentially having somebody here that they can cut the ball back to find somebody else who's on the edge of the box, for example. The options are there when you have extra players in the attack. And like I say, this is all sort of brought together by having these two sixes so high that the ball can come back through them and recycle every time that it needs to. So It'll be interesting to see how much we use those fullbacks, because I think it's going to be a lot. The one negative then, there's literally one negative for me from this pre-season, because we've scored 8 goals in 3 games. Oh, sorry, no, because we won against Harrogate 3-0 as well, haven't we? So we've scored 11 goals in 3 games, in 4 games, and conceded 2. So overall, look, we've been really, really good. But the one time where I think we've been a little bit sloppy is defending long balls over the top. So let's say that you've got a striker here, a couple of wingers, midfield like this. Let's say you've got one deep lying midfielder, and then you've got defence here. Leeds have kind of been struggling a little bit in terms of defending the long ball over the top. And I think that is down to a little bit of kind of positioning. Yes, we've been high up the pitch, and we're trying to not allow them out of their own half. But when they do get out of their own half, what do they do with it? And there was a couple of times, there was once in the Hanover game, once in the Valencia game, where the ball would come to a midfielder, nobody closed him down quick enough, and he was basically able to send a ball right over the top into the path of their striker. Now, Strauch and Rodon weren't close enough to each other. One of them has got to tuck and go to the player for me. I mean, this is opinion, because it's not an exact art. One of them, for me, in my opinion, has to go closer to the defender, to the striker. The other defender is then there to basically be a cover. If this player fails to get the ball, so let's say the ball comes up here and this player manages to get a flick on and beats Rodon to the ball, that is why Strauch is then there to come across whilst they're challenging for the ball and try and sweep that up. You've always then got a backup. So you've got one goes for the ball, one goes for the header first time, and one goes for the sweep back around. But what's actually been happening is that neither of them have gone for it enough, and the ball's basically gone straight through, and they've been able to go forward and either have a shot or someone's got a last-ditch challenge in. We need to make a decision. One of the defenders, one of the centre-backs has to go tight, has to win that header against a striker, especially if it's just a lone striker. You have to win that header. If you don't, you've then got your teammate, your other centre-back, coming back round to try and cover for you, and then therefore I think you're able to defend those situations better. But that's the only thing that worries me a little bit. And a lot of the time, these teams in the Championship, especially if we're pressing, they may go long, they may send a long ball over the top like that. And whilst a lot of the time Rodon has dealt with it well, there have been times where it's been a direct ball over the top into the path of the striker, and we've really not dealt with it very well. But that's the only one negative. Overall, I actually think that this pre-season has been fantastic. Like I said, with the goals we've scored and the hardly any goals we've conceded against a couple of Bundesliga B teams, or Bundesliga, second Bundesliga, who have only just been relegated, let's say, Schalke. They weren't the best teams in the world, but they were half decent, and we played really, really well against them. Harrogate obviously was a bit of a warm-up game as well, because they are right down the leagues in terms of the EFL. But Valencia, they put a real test in front of us in terms of a proper top-flight Spanish established side. We blew them away, really. Yes, they had a few chances, they had a few moments, but we played them off the park, in my opinion. I thought we were excellent against them, and the players that we had, the quality that we had, you would never think that we were a Championship side. So overall this season, this pre-season, it's been really, really positive for me. And now I'm looking forward to the first game of the season against Portsmouth, which I will be live for. So make sure you're on the channel on that, but there'll be plenty more videos before that happens. Thanks for watching Leeds Lately. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.